Okay, welcome to all of you who've come. If you're a timer, I hope you'll enjoy this adventure. And if you're coming back, thank you for joining me again. It's a kind of a cold, gloomy day out there today, so it's kind of fun to enjoy an opportunity to visit Colombia, which is a very beautiful country with very friendly, attractive people. The cities are huge and modern with upbeat contemporary restaurants and shops. However, out in the countryside, the villages have the traditional squares of an old Spanish town where people sit around and drink coffee and visit, and things are very quaint and charming. The food everywhere is good and plentiful. Colombia is exciting, diverse, and welcoming. The climate, there's just a few preliminaries before we get rolling. The climate is temperate and mild most of the time. They call it spring-like, despite the fact that the country is almost right on the equator, and neither rain nor bugs were much of a problem on our trip. The reason that the climate is mild is because you're at a fairly good elevation in the Andes Mountains most of the time on this trip. Since you're on the equator down around the coast, it would be very hot and humid. Um, uh, I think we had one day out of 18 days that was hot and humid. It rained on us occasionally, but only rarely. And it didn't hinder our birding. So let's head out on our adventure. I do want to say that Colombia hosts more bird species than any country in the world. With almost 1,900 bird species, 1/5 of our planet's bird species are found in Colombia. So Colombia is a must for any serious birder. So off we go. And I look forward to sharing this beautiful country with you. Come on, here we go. Um, we started in Chicago and flew an hour and a half to Atlanta, a few hours on the ground, and 5 hours over to Bogota. That's how easy it is to get there. It's the same time zone, so you don't have any jet lag. And this is to give you a little bit of an overview of the country itself. Uh, this is the Northwest. This is the Caribbean. This map is unfortunately in French. See, it says Colombia instead of Colombia, Brazil, and Equator. But it was the best map I could find showing Colombia. So this is the Caribbean. We did not get there. This is the Pacific Ocean over here. This is the connection to Central America. And down here, Brazil, Peru, and we started here in Bogota, which is the capital city. There are 3 ranges of the Andes, eastern, middle, or central, and then eastern. And we did the eastern and western slopes of all 3 of these ranges of the Andes. And the highest of the Andes mountains go over 22,800 feet. I have to tell you, we didn't go up that high. It's a good thing because I usually faint or do something worse. Anything over 10,000 feet is a disaster for me. Anyway, this is the city of Bogota. There are 8 million people, and you're at 8,500 feet when you're in Bogota down at ground level. We stayed at this small, quaint hotel called the Abadia Colonial in Candelaria. Candelaria is the historic district of Bogota. And of course, I would always pick a charming old hotel to a big, modern, fancy one. So we had everything we wanted in this pretty spot. And lo and behold, when we checked in, we found a huge painting of a bunch of parrots. So we knew we'd picked the right spot. So we were going out, looking over the Candelaria area, and you can see the Andes back there in the mountains. I mean, it's literally nestled right up against the mountains. Notice the colorful buildings. The Colombians love color. And speaking of color, this is a necklace that I'm wearing that I got in Colombia. And you can see this, I think, was made by indigenous people. but you can see color is everything for these people, and you'll see it throughout this throughout this talk. Sorry, I got through. We hired a Colombian lady named Diana Balcazar to show us around Bogota, and she was a delight. And she took us to begin with to the Botanic Garden and Jardin Botanico de Bogota. Anyway, Muti is named after him. And here we found our first bird, a great thrush. And here's what he sounds like. And then we found an eared dove. This is somewhat similar to our mourning dove, which you probably are all familiar with. It takes a little time for this recording to come up, but bear with me. There you can hear coo, coo, coo. And then we also ran across the ubiquitous rufous-collared sparrow. They're called roofies. It's kind of, I think, their version of our house sparrow. To my eye, he's a prettier bird than our house sparrows, but I probably am prejudiced. There, we ran across this gorgeous yellow-backed oriole, and here's his sound. It's that beautiful pure whistle that our oriole also has. And then we ran across a bird that I'd never seen before. This is the hornback troupial. It has the coloration of our oriole that you probably are familiar with. It's a slightly better shot of the troupial. And then we ran across, lo and behold, a yellow-billed cuckoo. Now, we have yellow-billed cuckoos in this country, and it's a big deal. Well, the question becomes, when you're down there, what's a yellow-billed cuckoo doing here? Well, the answer is a yellow-billed cuckoo is down in Colombia because it doesn't want to be up in Chicago in the wintertime. Our trip was in November, and this bird had probably been in Bogota already for a month. Here's what a yellow-billed cuckoo sounds like. And then we ran across some cute little saffron finches. We don't have anything like that in this country. We've got some that are similar, but nothing like this. So here's their sound. And of course, it was a botanic garden, so there were some unusual flowers, which I had to take a few pictures of. I have no idea what these are, but they were just so pretty. And there was several groups of school kids having a fun outing at the Botanic Garden, which is so sweet. The kids were having lunch. The children are perfectly darling. And then we went to the Gold Museum. The Gold Museum has a collection of 55,000 pieces, the largest in the world, 6,000 of which are on display in their huge building. It's a major attraction in Bogota. We didn't give it the time that it deserves, but it is a fascinating museum. I didn't take these pictures. My travel companion, Joan Bruckman, took these shots. But this is pre-Hispanic Colombia artwork. And then we took the cable car to the top of Mount Montserrat, which overlooks the city of Bogota. The top is at 10,300 feet. This is about what I can handle. There was a beautiful church up there overlooking the city. And this picture was from Diana, our guide. We did see these young women. They were indigenous or are indigenous Colombians, and this is their native dress. They don't speak any Spanish. There are more than 100 indigenous languages spoken in Colombia, so that must be a real problem to communicate with these folks. But they were obviously having a wonderful time. You can see they're smiling and they're wearing their cute little hats. It was very birdy up there. I mean, up at 10,000 feet, who would think it? But there were a lot of birds. This is Diana taking a picture of Joan and I shooting the birds. One of the ones we found right away was a pale-naped brush finch. We don't have a pale-naped brush finch in the US. And then we found a black-crested warbler. Now we do have warblers in the US, but we don't have a black-crested. This is a purely tropical bird. Another shot of the black-crested warbler. And then we ran across the beautiful scarlet-bellied mountain tanager. This is a gorgeous bird. He's got that little red ear and then the red belly. And he's found a bean or something. Don't usually take pictures of the back of birds, but this bird had a perfectly beautiful blue rump. So I had to show you that. And then we found an Andean siskin. This is Diana's photograph. And that's his call, noisy little thing. And we found a southern house wren. They are similar but different. They're similar to our house wrens, but so we had lunch at up there on the top of Mount Montserrat, and it was a lovely little.
I'm sorry, Mary Lou, I accidentally muted you, letting someone in, sorry.
It's okay, it's okay. So this was a lovely restaurant that we went to, and now for some reason I can't advance. I can't go forward.
Mary Lou, try to go backwards first.
Okay. Okay, so this is where this is us at the lunch table. And I do have to point out that number one, you don't get Coca-Colas or iced tea or Diet 7-Up or anything. You get fruit drinks, and that's because they've got so much fruit. And the fruit drinks were absolutely delicious. We were having a traditional Colombian soup for lunch. I think it's sopa de patacon, which is a squash soup, and you put the rice and the avocado in it. So this was a real treat, but the best treat was yet to come. We saw this Blackburnian warbler through the window of the restaurant at 10,300 feet. Now this is one of the most beautiful warblers that we get in this area through in May. So to see this bird was so astounding. I'm going to show you a photograph. Oh, here's his song. Oh, and it's a very high rising pitch that. So guess what I've got next for you? This is a picture I took of a Blackburnian at Skokie Lagoons on May 13th, 2019. This is him in breeding plumage, and this is him during the winter. So a stunning bird, and it was a real treat. And you just would never find that bird around a restaurant in this area, that's for sure. So then continuing our tour of the city, we went to the Botero Museum. Botero is self-dubbed the most Colombian of all Colombian artists. His name is truly synonymous with Latin American art. The prolific artist and his signature style known as boterismo evoke images of voluptuous, voluminous people and objects, and his success as an artist is incontestable. Botero is supposed to have said that he paints volume, not fat people. Well, see for yourself. They pretty much look chubby. And he even did a sculpture of a fat bird. And I got to tell you, you don't find a whole lot of fat birds anywhere except at the Botero Museum. But Botero gave his art collection to the people of Bogota or of Colombia. And some of his artwork is actually more interesting to me. This was one of his pieces. It's a Picasso. And then here was a Chagall. And then a sculpture by Salvador Dali. His art collection was really, really quite something. And we really enjoyed the museum. But it was time for us to get off on our trip. So farewell to Candelaria and hello to Diego Calderon. Diego was our sunrise birding guide, and he was a great guy and a wonderful birder. And so we left the huge city behind and we started out, and indeed we are on what I promised you, we are in a 4-wheel drive vehicle. We needed to be in a 4-wheel drive vehicle. In many of the areas that you go to for target birds, you simply, you can't do it without it. So because we were in we were a small group, it was myself, Joan Bruckman, and another fellow named Steve Maritko and Diego. So we were perfect in a 4-wheel drive. And this was where we started, down here in Bogota. And then this is where we traveled to get to see all the various birds that he wanted us to see. And when we got down to Pereira, we backtracked over here to the Tama National Park and then back to Pereira. And then we flew to Bogota and came back home. So it was a long trip. And the reason you have to go that far is that at each elevation, the birds are different. So you go down 100 feet or up 100 feet and you find different species. And it was Diego's job to find the birds for us, and he did it. He really did it. We started out with a black-chested mountain tanager. That's this little guy right here in the middle. Beautiful, beautiful call. And then we ran into a bar-crested ant shrike. They call it a near endemic because some of them go over into Argentina. So they can't, the word endemic in the birding world, actually in most of nature, endemic means this particular species, be it a bird or a plant or a fish, is specific to this, unique to this one place. And in this case, the bar-crested ant shrike is a near endemic, not a pure endemic because it goes over into Argentina. So here's his call. And the female is brown and white, looks the same as he does. And this gorgeous thing is a blue-necked tanager. This was taken by our other travel companion, Steve Maritko. It helps when you've got 3 or 4 photographers in a group, so you don't, if you miss it, somebody else gets it. And this is how the blue-necked tanager sounds. Beautiful colors, beautiful call. And this is what we would, every day we'd start out looking at clouds and they'd usually clear up. And then we'd have a whole new vista. One of our first stops was to find the black Inca hummingbird. The black Inca is an endemic and he's right there. He's just not, this was 8 years ago. I wasn't a very good photographer in those days. I didn't get him very well because I didn't stop his wings. But here's what he sounds like. And this is Diego's picture of the black Inca. So you really know what the bird looks like now. And we stopped at a place called Jardín Encantado, or the enchanted garden. It's in the small village of San Francisco. It is a wonderful spot. As you can see, there's a million, not a million, there were probably 40 hummingbird feeders, and there were hummingbirds coming to and from. It was almost overwhelming. I found it hard to even focus on any of the hummingbirds. It was a beautiful little spot. I should tell you that there are 300 species of hummingbirds in the world, and 160 of those species of hummingbirds are found in Colombia. And in this particular garden, this very small garden, there were 26 different species of hummingbirds. So the pictures that follow are not, most of them are not mine. This is a black-throated mango female. Joan took this. And that's the sound of it. And this is the black-throated mango male. And this is the brown violet ear. Now the violet things are things that they can flatten out and they disappear, or they can raise them if they're excited or angered or fighting for a place at the feeder. Here's what they sound like. This is my shot of a green violet ear. Here the blue is the thing that they can flesh out or fluff out to make them look more ferocious or larger. And this is a white-necked Jacobin. And here was the highlight, the Colombia endemic indigo-capped hummingbird. Now we've already had the black Inca that was an endemic hummingbird. This is another one. Sweet little sound. And the beautiful indigo-capped hummingbird, also an endemic. And then the rufous-tailed hummingbird. And then another Colombian endemic, the Andean emerald. And here we have the lower bird is the white-booted racquet-tail. These are feathers around his legs. And then this is this long tail that has the rackets on the end. This is another look at it from a different angle. You can see that those boots are really quite dramatic. And this is the male. And when he is displaying for the female, he will take these feathers of the tail and he'll make them go in and out. I'm sure it's very impressive. I have not seen that. And here's the fawn-breasted brilliant. This place was just overwhelming. There were so many birds, you just hardly knew where to turn. So the following day, we had a lovely open air breakfast. This was pretty typical, but it was good. The papaya, scrambled eggs, some cheese, toast, juice, and Diego was a great guy. Joan was into peanut butter for breakfast, so we got her a jar of peanut butter. This is our other companion, Steve Moritko. And so after breakfast, we went birding. And this is Diego. He heard a white-throated crake, which of course we didn't hear. Anyway, he was playing. He's got his back to us because he's playing the sound of the crake in hopes of getting the crake to come back. Turned out it worked the other way around, because there was the crake running away from us. But this is what the crake sounds like. Yeah, you would know that bird if you heard it, that's for sure. Anyway, also in the same location in this lagoon, we had a striated heron. He looks a little bit like our black-crowned night herons. And there are black-crowned night herons, as I'm sure many of you know, right at Prospect Heights Slough. This is just some local fungus that I saw that I thought was kind of cute. This was kind of looked like a little fairy village. And Diego ran across some Colombian girls, a couple of mother and daughter here, and a pal. They were just so sweet, and he was a great guy. He was good with the ladies. Let's just say that. So here we are. I'm not sure what range of the Andes we're in at this point. Just to giving you a little scenery. We're now in the village of Victoria, and all of these streets are cobbled, and they're hilly because, of course, they are in the hills. And the main mode of transportation is either walking or motorbikes. And look at the painting of the houses. This one was particularly pretty, but everything is immaculate. The country is a very tidy country. Beautiful roses, and I think these flowers grow year round because the climate is so perfect. We finally got some place where there was a flat land enough for them to have cattle grazing, with some beautiful cliffs overhead. And here we found the gorgeous fork-tailed flycatcher. Here's what it sounds like. Interesting call. And there's slightly better photograph of him. And when they fly, it really is a forked tail, quite spectacular. Of course, he didn't fly for us so that we could get a picture. Here's a couple of spectacled parrotlets. If parrots are around, you usually know it. And this was just some school kids waiting for the bus. They were just so fresh-faced and cute and smiley. These are just such nice people. Here's Diego explaining we were at a place called Rio Claro. So we started, this is where we are in Bogota, and I guess he's saying that we're somewhere here in the middle range, I think up here. This is guanabana fruit. This is the first time I'd ever seen it, but it had become my favorite fruit drink. It's soursop in this country. Other delicious fruit drinks that we had were lulo, maracaya, mango, and moya. I just can't get over how good they all were. And we found some bats in their day roost. You can see their little ears and their eyes. I'm sure they were not very happy to be discovered by us. Of course, they're nocturnal, you know that. So we ran across some ruddy ground doves. It's kind of a quiet call. And then we ran across a really pretty tanager. The tanager family is one, we have a few tanagers in this country. We've got a scarlet tanager that you see occasionally. We have a summer tanager. We've got a few tanagers, but the tanagers in South America are absolutely astounding. And this guy was a lachrymose mountain tanager, and lachrymose means tearful or crying. So this is what they're saying. It means that he's crying. Here's his call. I don't think he's crying at all. By the way, he's feeding on the berries on these vines. There's another shot of him, different light. Once again, the same berries and vines. And then this cute kid with one of his dogs. And this, they told me, was the home of a campesino, or a rural farmer. And I said, well, that is so attractive. And would that be a fairly prosperous campesino? And they said, oh no, they're all like that, which kind of impressed me. And now we got to one of the more charming villages that we visited. This is Jardín. And this is the square. We must be early in the day because there are not a whole lot of people out yet, but the squares are where people meet and greet. Back here is a church. This was our hotel, La Casona. off the square in Hardin, and our rooms were on this exposure. It was a Friday night, and some cowboys were riding through town at about around midnight. Other than that, we slept pretty well despite that. But this is the painting that I'm telling you about. I mean, look at this stuff, the balconies, all the windows. It was just so Colombian. Another street, another set of different, and you would never do the same colors as your next door neighbor, that's for sure. And this is the square. It was later in the day, and this is the next generation of birders. Here you can see they're feeding the pigeons. Pigeons seem to be ubiquitous, but you can see here's a young couple over here about to have their first little kid. Anyway, it's a very peaceful, sweet existence. And everywhere you go, coffee is grown on the hillsides wherever they possibly can do it. The problem with the coffee being such a premier crop for the Colombians is that they have cleared the trees off of the hillsides in order to plant coffee beans. And as a result, landslides have become a terrible problem. Because the roads there are very rarely alternate routes. If a road is closed by a landslide, you might have to go around, and it might be a 6-hour detour. Usually the drivers know what's going on ahead of time if you know where you're going, and you can call, and Diego did call on a hotline and talk to a human being and say where they are now and where they're planning to go and whether there's going to be a problem. It is probably the scariest thing that we ran across was being in landslide territory. And Diego would usually lag behind so that if there was a truck and something started to happen, he could then shoot ahead to get away from it. But in truth, it didn't happen to us, thank goodness. And we just went on our merry way. But initially, when Colombians were growing coffee, they were growing shade-grown coffee. So they would leave the trees and plant the bushes, which is what you're seeing up here on the mountaintop, to be under the trees. So that meant that the beans developed slower, and it was better tasting coffee. In fact, there are places today that sell shade-grown coffee because it is more expensive, but the Colombians got greedy and they wanted to get as much as they could. And oh, by the way, it was a whole lot better for the birds that there were trees for the birds to enjoy. And also the birds ate the insects. They didn't have to use insecticides on the coffee. So it's all tied up, Mother Nature, as I guess we all know these days, and we're learning more and more about it. But denuding hillsides to plant coffee was not a good idea. This is the coffee beans. These are ripe. These are not ripe. Many of these hillsides are very steep, and they pretty much have to be picked by hand because you have to come back and get these when they're ready later. Anyway, Diego was talking to a couple of some mountain bikers. There were 3 of them. They seemed very serious, but I think they were having a pretty good time. This was the real deal. They had the whole outfit, the shoes, the proper pants, the helmets, the proper gloves. And it's a big deal, mountain biking. Well, you can see why, because they've got so many mountains. Anyway, just another view as we were traveling along. And somewhere along the line, we got into sort of a little foresty area, and we found a beautiful grass green tanager. This isn't a good picture of him because he's in the shade, but I've got a better picture of him. But here's his sound. Oh, well, there's the look of him. That is a knockout bird as far as I'm concerned. Interesting, this kind of brown with the red beak. And we ran across a golden hooded tanager. What a gorgeous bird that was. And the blue-gray tanager. Now, what you have to see is the real blue here on the shoulder And then the more aqua blue and the wingtips, gorgeous bird. And by the way, this is what goes for a bird feeder in Colombia. You put out fruit because that's what the birds eat. And then we ran across a stunning black-billed mountain toucan. What a knockout bird this is. I mean, it almost looks like he's wearing eye makeup, doesn't it? The under rump, the above rump, all of this, and that beak is like a almost like a fingernail. It's very light, so it's not a hardship for them at all. And this is what they sound like. Kind of a funny call. And now, well, these are called Andean cock of the rock. These birds are so amazing, and they are on a lek. A lek is where birds go to, male birds go to display, to show off for the girls. And displaying involves calling and the raising of this cap. Now, this is not a very good picture, folks, but we are literally hanging by our fingernails off a hillside. So here's his call. That's more than one bird calling there, and I'm sure there's a female around. This is a better shot of him. This is his beak, and so this is feathering that he can raise, and they are just the wildest looking birds imaginable. And then we ran across this gorgeous metallic green tanager. Nice berries he's enjoying. And then we ran across this endemic flame rump tanager. Obviously, the bird is named for his most distinctive asset, but it's also cute that he's got a red eye. Here's his call. And then we found a lemon rump tanager. Wasn't giving us a good view. Completely different sound from the flame rump. And then we found a silver-throated tanager. Now this guy doesn't really look silver to me. Maybe it's the light, or maybe he's just badly named. But I love the slight green on the wings. The endless variety and beauty of birds is just so amazing. Look at this one, a thick-billed euphonia. This is Joan Bruckman's photo. Once again, on some fruit. I've got some mourning doves cooing off my balcony. I hope they're not bothering you. And this, I hope you can't hear those. And this is a golden tanager, once again on a feeder. But what a beautiful bird this is. And then we found the black-chinned mountain tanager. This, of course, is a bird's chin, just in case you don't get that. And then the fawn-breasted tanager. There he is. There he is. Beautiful feathering, the incredible colors. And these birds usually change their feathers twice a year. And then the multicolored tanager. This is an endemic bird. That's more of a chip note, a contact note. And here's the white-capped tanager. Once again, he's in the shade. It's not a great shot. There's a better shot. That's off the internet. And then we found the blue and black tanager. Tanager family is just incredible. Once again, he's feeding on the berries that you can see around there. And we hadn't done a whole lot of woodpeckers. This was the crimson mantled. It looks more brownish, but this is what it's called, is a crimson mantled woodpecker. And this is lovely that he's finding some insects, because that's what they eat here in all the lichens on this tree. Sounds completely different than our woodpeckers. And then we found a beautiful Andean or Highland motmot, long tail, beautiful colors. There's a close-up of that bird. Just gorgeous. Ant pittas are very skulky little guys. They're very hard to find. They're usually low in the underbrush. And if you get a glimpse of one, you're very, very lucky. Somewhere along the line in this area where we were, there was a guy who had learned to feed mealworms, put mealworms out for the ant pittas. So Diego hired him, and the guy brought out his mealworms, and we got fabulous views of these ant pittas. This is the chestnut crown, and it not for nothing is it called an egg on legs, because that's what it looks like. It's kind of a secretive little call. And here was another species of ant pitta. This was incredible. This guy makes himself known. And here's the third one, a slaty-crowned ant pitta. And in the same area, we found a gray-browed brush finch. This is another brush finch, different. He's kind of got a greenish cast. So now we are in the town of Medellin. And I know that you looking at that and saying, Mary Lou, it's Medellin, but it isn't. Diego is from Medellin, and he says it's Medellin. So that's what I'm calling it too. 2,200,000 people. And in the area just north, just like 15 or 45 minutes north of Medellin, they discovered this new endemic. It's called the Antioquia wren. It was discovered in 2012. And it's Diego's picture. And we saw this bird, but it was very skulky and very hard to photograph. So that's why I'm using Diego's photos. A great call. Great call. And a trogon. Now, if you're a photographer and a birder, you love trogons because they're big and they sit still. This is a collared trogon. And that call will carry a long way in that thin mountain air. And then we found the gorgeous green jay. Now, mostly the jays in this country are blue jays, but down in South Texas, we've got green jays. And this is a knockout bird. I saw green jays down in South Texas right before in February came home and we got shut down with COVID. This is a favorite bird of mine. And then here is a jay. I hope you can see him. This is his beak and his eye. This is a black chested. Now, they consider this the chest and this the belly. Okay, so that's why they're calling it a black chested jay. The taxonomy of birds is not always 100% accurate. And that doesn't sound like a jay's call at all. to us, but it does to the black-chested jays. Now we are very high. This is a Colombian paramo or paramo. Now we're up over 12,000 feet, and I am all but fainting. This is a strange vegetation, and there was one bird up there, and I actually managed to get a shot of it before I fainted. Stout-billed syncodes at Los Nevados. So more countryside. And now from the high in the mountains to down in the rushing water, we found a white-capped dipper. These birds really love this rushing water, and they dive into it and then they come out and fly, and whatever they get to eat, I'm sure, aquatic invertebrates. They are just they're very fast, and they're amazing to watch. When I say frenetic, I mean it. And this was Steve's shot of the white-capped dipper. Great little bird. And then almost in the same area, we had a pair of torrent ducks. And it's a similar sort of deal. They love this rushing water. And this is the female, and this down here is the male. And they dive in, and then they come popping out and jumping up on those big rocks. They're absolutely behaviorally just bizarre, but lots of fun to watch. That's their call. And then another trogon, God love him, a masked trogon this time. It has beautiful feathering on its long tail. And of course, a little red eye ring with the yellow bill. And that's his sound. And then we found a northern crested caracara. Now these guys were all over Brazil when they were there. That's their call. And this is one of the stranger birds around. It's called a potu. This is a common potu. And they have a way of finding off a broken off tree and sitting on it. And their feathering is such that they're very camouflaged. And sometimes they're very hard to see. These are nocturnal birds. So he's sleeping now. But if he were awake, this is what he would sound like. And it's an unusual call. Isn't that wild? It almost sounds like it's a human being. Come on, one more time. And then we found some howler monkeys. I don't have a call for you on this one. I had the call for the howler monkeys on another, I think it's on the upcoming trip to Mexico. Anyway, there were several of these guys, and they really are funny. And then Diego found this mossy walking stick insect. It was so pretty and so delicate, and that really is his camouflage. And then Diego found a plain walking stick over here. We found some black vultures. Now, mostly black vultures you smell before you see them. They do reach. Of course, they're carrion eaters. That's why they have no feathering on their head. And the view of the beautiful view of the Andes. Just more scenery, fabulous scenery. So this is our last stop, and it was an eco lodge at Montezuma. And the doors had some of the doors had doors that closed and some of them didn't. The windows were open and didn't close. It was a lovely little spot, and this was where we stayed. And the window was open in my room, and the door was open, and I was literally standing there in the room when a hummingbird flew in the window and went out the door. So it's just kind of, that's the way life is there. We found right there next to the lodge, a blackish rail, with two chicks. And this is what they sound like. There were lots of birds there. These are the scarlet-bellied mountain tanagers that we saw in the very beginning at the top of Mount Montserrat in Bogota. So I do want to say, and this is the sound of them. I want to go back just one here to this. We stayed in some incredibly luxurious resorts, but certain places to go to get the birds, there just aren't any luxurious, beautiful resorts. I do have to say that some of the places were pretty basic and or even sometimes less than basic. We never complained because we were just having such a fabulous time. But if you can't bear a cold shower, you don't go to the outlying areas of Colombia, because that's what you got there. And in a few places, they would have a wire up over the shower head, and they would try to heat the water as it came out of the. I just decided, no, I don't need a hot shower that much, because I have a feeling I'd get electrocuted. So I just would say that you got to be willing to take a little bit of discomfort. I have to say, cold showers are really tough. It's not fun, but boy, the birds are worth it, and no complaints. This was a wonderful little lodge. This was owned by Leo, this gal, and her daughter Yesenia was a very good birder, and she was actually leaving to go to college. And this is the only person in their family who'd ever gone to college. I have no idea. Maybe she got a scholarship or something, but they were lovely people. This was Leo's sister and her daughter who did all the cooking. And this was my lunch one day. I had my Birds of Columbia book with me, and it was rice and sauteed plantain with chicken and fries and tomato and cucumber. It was absolutely delightful. And of course, juice. So here's coffee growing on the hillside. Here's the Colombian coffee beans going to market. And here's a bunch of Colombian kids going to market with the coffee. Obviously, getting a ride into town was a big deal. We are now heading to the airport, and we birded right up to practically we got on the plane. We found this crested bobwhite en route to the airport. Really bizarre looking bird. Here's his call. Unbelievable. And then we found a scarlet fronted parakeet. The scarlet front is his forehead there. That's his call. And as our farewell au revoir bird, we found some gorgeous red-bellied grackles. What a knock. It is an endemic. I didn't get a shot of them, so Diego gave me this shot. But what a knockout bird. And here's what they sounded like. Kind of a warbly or watery warble to me. Anyway, this smooth-billed Ani says, come to Colombia to bird. A lot of us are here waiting for you. Hasta pronto. See you soon. So thanks to Diego and Sunrise Birding, we tallied 448 species of birds and 13 other critters, and had a wonderful time in beautiful birdie Colombia. So that's it, folks. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, Mary Lou. I'll look in chat and see if there's questions. I'm curious, what was the average temperature when you were there?
It was just wonderful, like 75. You know, we practically never wore a coat.
And did you find any bugs? Were there mosquitoes or anything like that?
I think there was maybe one day that it was kind of hot and humid, and I don't really even remember where we were when that happened, but it wasn't troublesome. It really was never. The bugs weren't bad, and the temperature was amazing. That's not true in a lot of the tropics, and most of that I ascribe to it being high in the altitudes. So,
I was curious too, what they put in those hummingbird feeders that they attracted so many hummingbirds, but I guess
well,
there's just a lot of them there.
hummingbirds feed on nectar, and in fact, they, I'm sure, put the same things into the nectar that we do, which is it's just sugar water. You just have to melt the sugar so that it's not granulated, and uh, and it just lasts forever, and they just love it. They just love it. Now, I will tell you that hummingbirds don't live on sugar water alone. Hummingbirds do eat uh, insects, and they will always enjoy that. And but but you if you want hummingbirds, you put up hummingbird feeders. It's just sugar water. It's 1/4 cup sugar to 1 cup of water, and you just heat it till the sugar is diluted, and then off you go.
Okay, someone wants to know if Diego named the birds for you, or did you look up the birds in your book afterwards?
Oh, Diego named them. Diego knew them. He knew the Latin, he knew the French, knew the Spanish, and he knew the English. Oh yeah, oh yeah. He knew them backwards and forwards, and he knows all of them. And there are over almost 1,900 birds in that country. Absolutely amazing. You got to be smart to be a birder, or to be that kind of a birder anyway.
Wow. Please feel free to put your questions in chat, or if you'd like to unmute. Someone commented, beautiful photos of colorful birds to see. We enjoy the nature and the natives of where they live. So,
Well, that's a lovely comment, and it is a beautiful country. Now, can I? Uh, let's be honest. Colombia's had its problems. There's been a serious problem with cocaine being grown in the mountains in Colombia, because there's so many areas that can't be monitored. And the United States has worked very carefully with the Colombian government to try to uh, address the raising of cocaine. And in 2019, with U.S. assistance, Colombia eradicated more than 100,000 acres of cocoa, uh, and the police and uh, so they've done a lot that they can do, the best they can do, to stop the trafficking of cocaine out of that country and into ours. And in 2018, the U.S. and Colombian governments set a bilateral whole of government goal to reduce high levels of coca cultivation. So, there are problems in that country, but boy, it is it is a good U.S. Ally in South America, and Americans. I think nobody's going anywhere right now because of COVID, but Americans are well liked. I do have to tell you that unless you have some Spanish, you better have a guide when you go to Colombia, because the guidebooks will tell you that English is widely spoken. No, it's not. If you haven't got pretty good Spanish, you better have a guide with you all the time.
someone's asking, how safe is the country? Were you protected from nasty people, drugs, and revolutionaries?
Yes, we were. The only time we were scared were the two times that we were scared. One of them was when we were in the landslide zone, and the other was trying to cross the street in downtown Bogota. The traffic in downtown Bogota is horrendous. It's like 5 lanes of traffic going one direction with no lanes painted, and somehow they all go and they miss each other. I don't know how they do it, but no. In fact, the problems, the government solved signed a truce with the bad guys, and everything was calm. And Diana, when we were going around the city, was very careful that we didn't. She said, no watches, no rings, no earrings. You even keep your cameras under your jacket. But we never had any difficulty. We walked the streets of Candelaria and enjoyed ourselves thoroughly. So we felt safe all the time. I would say, let's see. turmoil and guerrilla conflicts are yesterday's news, and that is the way it is too. It is today, because I've done some research before I gave this talk just to see what's going on, and it seems to be all pretty much under control. The biggest problem is the cocaine thing.
Someone wants to know if you need a special camera when you go on these trips.
Well, and it's a good question. The birds are almost always farther away from you than you want to go, so you need to have a camera with a good lens. I did not. This was 8 years ago, before I was into photography. I had I didn't have a long enough lens. I think I had a 210. You need a 400. And Diego had that. Joan had a 300 millimeter, one of these lenses. There's great cameras out right now. I just bought one that's much smaller, that has a great zoom on it, but I haven't had much chance to use it because I haven't been able to go birding in a year and a half or so, about a year. Yeah, for birds, you really do need to have a long lens or a big zoom. And of course, for the scenery shots, anything goes. Your brownie hawkeye would do that just fine. I don't suppose they make brownie hawkeyes anymore.
We also want to let them know that you're coming back in May. In fact, you'll be here Monday, May 10th, and you're taking us to Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula.
Indeed, I am. And that's a good one too. That's a lot of good one, and a lot of different birds, considerably different from what we've experienced here. So if you got a bit of a kick out of this, I hope you will join me in May. The Yucatan it's also another sunrise birding trip, and we had a lot of fun. So I've got some good birds to show you, and some good things to see as well. So I hope some of you will come back again. And do we want to mention the bird walks at the slough?
Sure, you can. I didn't hear back from Dana if there's any openings, but yeah, we can let them know.
So I do lead a couple of bird walks in the spring around the Prospect Heights Slough, and we start at Isaac Walton Park there, right off of Elmhurst Road, and it's about a 2-hour walk around the slough, and it's under the auspices of the Park District. And because of COVID, it's definitely limited to 8 or 10 people. So you would have to register with the Park District, and you do need to have binoculars. There's no point in coming on a bird walk without binoculars, but we do have loaners. And the dates are the 15th and the 22nd.
I saw it the 15th and the 29th.
15th and 29th. That'd be right. 2 weeks later. Yeah. 15th and the 29th. We start about 7:30. The reason you start early when you go birding is because birds call when they first wake up, and that's how you see them, is through their calls. So and their movement, of course. So I would hope to see some of you in May for the Yucatan, and some of you maybe out birding around the slough.
Someone's asking, would you book your trip through a bird travel group?
Yes. You there are a number of bird tour companies that do only birding tours. And the one that I go with 100% now is Sunrise Birding. They're out of Coscob, Connecticut, but there's another one called Field Guides. There's another one called Victor Emmanuel Nature Tours. There's about 5 or 6 big ones. I tend to like Sunrise Birding because they tend to keep the group small, and that's important for seeing birds, particularly difficult birds. So yeah, I mean, people don't realize that birding is really a big deal in this world, and it's big business too. But I like Sunrise because it's a smaller outfit, and they do keep the group small. So that's really important. So, and I started birding by going on a birding trip with Victor Emmanuel Nature Tour. I went down for a beginning birders trip to High Island, Texas, which is the Gulf Coast. The birds were coming across the Gulf Coast. coming across the Gulf of Mexico, and the winds changed on them. So they were flying into the wind. Usually birds fly with the winds and they have hollow bones. So the wind just carries them. But in this case, the wind changed. So the birds, when they reached shore, if they reached shore, were just dripping out of the trees. And there I was, a beginning birder, seeing all these incredible birds just practically, they were too exhausted to move. And that was what hooked me on birding, to be quite honest. So yeah, you got to go with a special birding tour company for sure.
Well, thank you, Mary Lou, for a wonderful presentation. Again, we hope everybody comes back Monday, May 10th and goes to the Yucatan Peninsula with us. And also, everybody join us this Thursday night. We're going to celebrate Earth Day at 7 o'clock with Dr. Dan Schilling with our Nature Speaks. And he'll be coming to us from Phoenix, Arizona. So please sign up today for that program right on our calendar.
He's supposed to be a terrific speaker too. I'm going to be watching.
All right, wonderful. Well,
Bye-bye,
thank you,
everybody.
Mary Lou. Take care. Everybody stay well, and we'll see you all soon.